Summer is hot, but the Dogs are even hotter on the recruiting trail right now. I got Jake Rowe from DawgsHQ joining me. Jake, look at UGA's offensive line class. This graphic shows there's over a ton of beef committed to Georgia. Nair Daniels, Daniel Calhoun, Marquise Easley, Marcus Harrison, Malachi Tolliver, and Michael Uni. Jake, who's your favorite of this group?
My favorite's one of the lowest rated guys of the group, and that's Marquise Easley. His competition level is probably the worst of the group, playing up in Kankakee, Illinois. And listen, I don't know a ton about it, but I don't think it stacks up to Texas and Georgia and some of the other places that Georgia has gotten these guys from. But this cat is long. He is freakishly talented. And, talking to some people some sources inside the program, very, very high on Georgia's board. I think maybe Nair Daniels is the only guy that they've taken that may be higher on the board than Marquise Easley. And when I watch his film, if you're just looking at the raw talent, the way he bounces around, the way he moves, how light he is on his feet, and how big he is, I think he's going to be a pretty good offensive lineman at the next level. And the funny thing is, as far as the class goes, at 6'5", he's kind of a runt. He's not 6'7" or 6'8" like some of these other guys are.
I love that. The run of the class. Okay. Whatever you say, Jake. So how did all of this come together? Because it seemed like nearly this entire offensive and defensive line class kind of committed in the same time frame. Was this planned, or was it just a coincidence?
I think it was more coincidence than planned. I mean, sometimes you run into those things that, there's some gray area, and I think there's probably some gray area here. I think that they probably wanted to make a little bit of a splash with a couple of these guys, like Nair Daniels. Nair Daniels he visited Georgia kind of middle of the month. I want to say it was like around maybe it was around July 16th, if I'm not mistaken, and he made that decision to do that. And then initially he said he was going to commit on July 4th. Moved it to July 7th. So, thank goodness there, didn't have to cover a commitment on July 4th, but done it before. But yeah, I think that was a guy that may have moved some things around for Georgia. Marquise Easley, I think had committed or given the staff an indication earlier in the process that he was going to commit. And I think that was another one that may have kind of fallen into the, hey, let's get it done right around this time type deal. But Daniel Calhoun, Michael Uni, I think those guys kind of decided when they wanted to decide. Both of those guys kind of came off the visit, either a visit run or, in Uni's case, fresh off an official visit to Georgia, where the Bulldogs kind of just turned that recruitment around and swiped them away from Michigan and Alabama.
Bird Dog khakis. They're stretch khakis that you can wear anywhere. I wear them to work. I wear them to the market. I wear them golfing. Last weekend, I wore them golfing with my fiance, and she mentioned how good my legs look. She never mentions how good my legs look. I wear them to work, and JD always compliments me on my Bird Dogs, asking me where I got them. And I say, hey, they're so much better than my stiff, old khakis. I just love the fit. I love the way they also just keep me cool and comfortable throughout the entire summer. Go to birddogs.com right now. Enter promo code ON3, that's birddogs.com/ON3, or enter promo code ON3 for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. Get a free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. All right, well, Georgia has the #1 class, and Georgia recruiting fans are becoming a bit of an elitist group. They only want to look at the #1 prospects at their position, and I don't blame them. Georgia has the #1 quarterback already committed in Dylan Raiola. They have the #1 corner already committed in Ellis Robinson, but there's a few other #1s that they're hunting. Let's start with #1 linebacker Justin Williams. What's the latest intel right now? Because it seems like he might be closing in on a decision.
I think Georgia has steadily been pulling in the right direction since he took an unofficial visit. He's teammates with Joseph Jonah Ajonye, who's also a recent commit of Georgia. Those two visited together in May. I believe it was the first time Jonah Ajonye had been to Georgia. I'm not sure about Williams, but ever since then, you heard that Georgia was kind of making a move. They both set official visits to Georgia for the same weekend. Coming out of that official visit, you heard the same thing. Georgia's kind of creeping in the right direction. This is still really close with Oregon. And then for some reason, we all knew Jonah Ajonye was going to commit to Georgia. I think we all knew that was coming. Well, he commits to Georgia, and then the buzz really starts to pick up. So it sounds like Georgia may be kind of widening the gap there between itself and Oregon. I like the Bulldogs right now. Put in an RPM pick there this morning.
Okay, let's stay with the number ones. Number one at his position, KJ Bolden is the number one safety, and he's set to decide in August. A lot of momentum in June with Ohio State, but how can you count out the in-state Georgia Bulldogs at this point?
Well, if you're looking for a reason, it's because he plays at Buford High School, and Georgia just does not kill it there. Hasn't for a long time, but I would still pick Georgia as of today. I think Georgia's in a really good spot there. They've done a really good job of putting safeties in the NFL, of putting defensive backs in the NFL. I think that's very appealing, also being very close to home. But listen, it's an eternity, feels like, between now and August the 5th, whenever he's going to make his decision. And, Alabama's not going to go away. Ohio State's not going to go away. This is going to be a battle all the way until then. And, listen, it'll be almost like a football game, like winning a big game. You'll get to celebrate it for about 24 hours, and then you're going to get right back to work keeping on recruiting him because nobody else is going to stop.
All right, I got one more number one for you. Just as we're taping this show, news kind of breaks that Williams Nwaneri, the number one defensive lineman in America, is going to make his decision. It looks like August 1st, Jake. So what are your sources saying on where the Dogs stand with Williams Nwaneri?
I think they're in as good a spot as they could possibly be right now, just in terms of a recruitment that's like this. One that coming into June, they were probably a little bit of an afterthought. I think Georgia's got some momentum, but the thing they're running into is they're running into relationships at Oklahoma. I believe one of his coaches, or maybe his head coach, played at Oklahoma. I know he's got a former teammate that's at Oklahoma, and the Sooners have done a really good job recruiting him. They deserve a lot of credit for that. They've been on this for a while. Missouri is another school, in-state program. They're selling him on the idea of kind of coming in and turning that program around and kind of taking it to a different level there in the SEC. I think both of those schools are going to fight really hard. I don't see Tennessee as a major factor anymore. Mm-hmm. I think Georgia's kind of supplanted Tennessee as maybe that third team at the top. But, if I had to absolutely pick today, I wouldn't want to. First of all, I'd beg you not to make me. But first of all, I would say Georgia. But it's far from over. We're going to know in 22 days what's going to happen there, or 3 weeks or whatever. I may be bad at math here, but whatever you're talking about here, I think you're looking at, the decision here, the final decision is probably not going to be made until the last probably week to 4 or 5 days before he commits at best. And right now I think Georgia's in position to possibly be the team.
Talking about cleaning up. Well, if things continue to trend the way that they have throughout the spring and into the summer, and looks like it's going to continue to trend that way into the fall. You've been around this program for a long time. Does this have the potential to be the best recruiting class in UGA history?
There's no doubt about it. I mean, it really does. And the thing I like most about this class, Josh, is how well-rounded it is. There's not really a single position. It's a big class. And so with a big class, you want to make sure you're hitting every spot in there, and I think Georgia's doing that. I mean, they've recruited incredibly well along the lines of scrimmage in a class that the offensive line wasn't easy to recruit. There's just not a lot of elite guys on the offensive line, especially at tackle in this class, and Georgia's still been able to get quality and quantity at that position. You get two really good quarterbacks in Dylan Raiola and Ryan Puglisi. They've got a chance to add a Nate Frazier, a newly minted on 300 5-star running back there. They've got a chance to add him to another couple of really good running backs in this class and load up at that position. It is such a well-rounded class at all the different positions, and I think that's what really stands out and maybe separates this class from maybe some other elite classes from other programs where they're not necessarily leaning on a bunch of 5 stars at one position. They're kind of picking up a lot of quality and a lot of quantity at a bunch of different spots.
Quality and quantity across the board. Well, Jake, you are all quality. Thank you for stopping by the Inside Scoop today. Thank you for watching. Make sure you smash that subscribe button for me. And remember to check out all the videos on the On3 YouTube page.